The Tigers kick off spring training with a couple of wins. We'll talk about that, as well as continuing our player preview series with Tyler Holton, all today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Monday, February 24th, 2025. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Welcome in, everyone. Hope you all had a fantastic weekend. We are going to discuss the takeaways, we'll call them, the notes that I have taken from these first two spring training games. The Detroit Tigers are 2-0 in the calendar year 2025. Then we'll end the show by doing a player preview on Tyler Holton. Not super long, because I think we're all pretty well aware of how good he is, how much of a dog he is, and what his role on the team is going to be this season. But, you know, the beginning of spring training is always, I don't know if eye-opening is the right word, but it's a way to turn heads fast. I want to start off by saying that I could not care less about spring training records. Okay, I give this spiel every single year when spring training starts. I do not care in any way, shape, or form about wins and losses in spring training. It is not an indication of what a team is going to do in the regular season, literally at all. Okay? So I want to put that out there. I mean, look at Sunday's game. All of the starters in Sunday's game were out by the fifth inning, and the starting lineup wasn't even close to the starting lineup that you will see on opening day. There were like 2 or 3 everyday starters in the lineup, and it was completely minor leaguers that won't touch the majors this year by the bottom of the fifth. So, like, it's really hard for me to put too much stock in wins and losses. Now, 2-0 is 2-0, and we'll gladly take it. This is spring training is way more for looking at individual player performances and honestly just coming to conclusions and trying to determine what matters that you're seeing, because like some of it doesn't, which sounds weird, but like there are guys that will, you know, hit 450 in spring and get sent down and will be in Double-A this year. Like, and then, or, you know, a more relevant example maybe was last year. Like we saw Matt Manning and he was throwing that changeup splitter thing. I gave this example last week, I know, and everybody was like, oh shoot, like, you know, Matt Manning, like this might be kind of the year. And I projected him to make the team out of camp and thought it was kind of a foregone conclusion. Doesn't even make the rotation, doesn't do that well in the minors either. Gets hurt, isn't really even an option for the Tigers throughout the season. Like the team has a ton of analytics and numbers. They know what they're doing, and it's just really fun to be back. It is so fun to have spring training baseball back on TV, and it's so fun to be watching these games with kind of a close eye and trying to figure out, you know, what is sustainable, who looks good, who doesn't, who's helping their cause, who's hurting their cause. All part of the fun that is leading into opening day here at the end of March. So I want to start off with both starting pitchers from this weekend. I thought both really helped their cause, and it's impossible. Well, I shouldn't say impossible. There seems to be, presumably, 2 rotation spots up for grabs between 3 pitchers, being Mize, Maeda, and Jackson Jobe. Now, you can throw Brant Herter into that mix. You can throw Cater Montero into that mix, who we'll talk about later. There are other guys that do have a long shot, do have a chance. But if you're talking about the guys that have a legitimate shot and are the three betting favorites, if you will, to land two of those spots, it's those three. And for Mize and Maeda to start off spring training and look how they did, I think is awesome. That's a good problem to have. I would rather it be a tough decision because everybody that's fighting for one spot looks really good than vice versa, or then like one's really good and one isn't. Depth is good. Both of these guys will pitch and start a game for the Detroit Tigers this year. I promise you. Mize pitched on Sunday. Fastball was around 97, 98 miles an hour. That some people were like, oh, shoot, like that's really fast. Like he was throwing actually, 96, 97 last year. So the fastball velocity hasn't really been a issue is not the right word, but like has not been a cause for concern for this team. It's really everything else. And I think my biggest takeaway in this game is that Casey Mize is just a dog, man. Like I root for him so hard. I want him to figure it out so badly. You can tell that he is just trying to figure it out and trying to make it work so badly. He's putting in so much time and effort, blood, sweat, and tears. He debuted like multiple pitches we haven't seen from him before. You know how wild that is? 1 year removed from Tommy John, you get one off season, you come back, you're throwing a sinker to lefties. Actually, he threw it. He got a third strike on, or a swinging strike, I should say, on it, on a strikeout against a righty as well. But like he was really throwing a lot of this sinker to lefties. It moves a lot vertically, which is awesome. And we know that that's obviously, the splitter. He threw a couple of times in this game as well, hung it a couple of times, but also had a nice swing and miss on it. And then Chris Brown of Motor City Metrics had a great video you can go watch on his Twitter page that kind of highlights the difference, but like very noticeably two different breaking balls in this game. He had more of a loopy kind of, not a curveball, but more of like a sweeping slider. And then he had this one that was legitimately topping out at like 89, almost 90 miles an hour, and was a little bit similar to a cutter, I guess you would say, but it did move a little bit more than that. All of that combined for a pretty decent start. Only threw 2 innings, as most guys will, first time through the rotation here in spring training. But I was pretty impressed. I still have concerns about him developing a true 2-strike finish the hitter off type of pitch. I think that we're still missing that, and that did rear its ugly head in this outing even. Had a lot of foul balls with 2 strikes in this game, but also recorded, what was it, 3 or even 3 strikeouts as well. So I again, have my concerns. I think there's a real chance after this outing that Maeda is going to make a run for that 5th spot in the rotation. We'll talk about him in a second. But I think as far as first outings in February go, I'm pretty pleased with how Casey Mize looked. Kenta Maeda might have been the star of the weekend, however. Velocity was at 92, 93 miles an hour. I think he peaked at 93.7 through all winter, which is something he hasn't done. I don't know. I don't want to say he's never done it before because I don't know his winter training regiment that well, but like I know last year he didn't, and I know that he didn't last year because he was used to not. He was used to not throwing in the winter, coming into spring, getting ramped up and being ready by opening day, and usually struggled in April, and then by May was kind of locked down. It was awesome to see him. Do you know that he was throwing 86 when he debuted in spring training a year ago? 86. He topped off at almost 94 today. I'm not sure he threw a pitch 94 miles an hour all of last season. We'll talk about more of what I liked from Kenta Maeda and more right after this. Got to talk to y'all today about our friends over at FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can combine your live bets into the same game parlay, one of the most fun things in the sports betting world. I love using FanDuel's live betting features because it helps keep every moment of the game exciting, whether I'm backing my team for a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three. I never fail to miss my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can also get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2, Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. As always, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. We, of course, will be back tomorrow as we talk about more spring training baseball and keep our player preview series rolling. And, of course, any news and notes that come out of camp and come out of Lakeland, we will discuss every single day. I'm so happy that we're talking about baseball games that were played. It's spring training. You got to take it all with a grain of salt. I'm going to continue reiterating that point because I mostly for my own good than y'all's. Like I really need to remind myself not to get overly analytical or overhyped or too down on somebody just over a spring training performance. But I'm just glad that I watched the Detroit Tigers play baseball on my TV on Sunday. And that's pretty darn cool. Kenta Maeda's performance on Saturday, not televised, obviously, but we did have all of the Baseball Savant metrics for it. That's how we get the miles per hour and the velocity and whatnot. The splitter averaged about 86 miles an hour. That's way faster than last season as well. And this is start one of spring. And I don't think there's a ton of room to grow there because I think he's just like coming into camp ready, like in regular season form, more so than just like, oh, this is a new starting point. But if he can sit here, that's still like almost immediately in February better than we saw him at all last year, and that's really a great sign. So honestly, I think Kenta Maeda, if you're talking about players who benefited the most over the weekend, I think it's pretty comfortably him. This guy went from in my roster projection 1, potentially not even making the team and getting cut out of spring training, to now that we have actually seen the rumored, great Arsenal. Well, not literally seen it, I guess, but because not on TV again. But now that we have the writers have witnessed, the media has witnessed, and we're seeing the analytics for this great stuff that he's showcasing this year. It's nice to see, and I think there's a chance that $10 million. I think there's a chance, especially if it's just to replace Cobb, that he is in the rotation on opening day. Not a guarantee. We still got a month of spring training ball left, but I do think that is on the table, much more so than it was on Friday's episode. And so, yeah, that starting pitching battle is going to be an absolute doozy the rest of the way. I mentioned Mize, Maeda, and Job kind of fighting for 2 spots. Maeda and Mize, again, both look solid. I think given the contract situation as well, Maeda's odds of being that SP5 have kind of like skyrocketed. Talking about non-starting pitchers, because so far we've only talked about those two. Dylan Dingler hit an absolute tank on Sunday. That was really nice to see, over 110 miles an hour off the bat. Just absolutely sent a ball into orbit. It's going to be really important to get him going this season offensively. So really good to see that. Jace Young, one of the players on Friday's episode when we talked about who has is playing for the most this spring training. Jace Young, one of the clear top guys on that list. One of the guys, if you were to rank who does spring training mean the most to on this roster, Jace Young is dang near the top of that list. On Sunday, goes 2 for 2 with 2 doubles, both of them line drives down the right field line. Both of them hit really hard. The first one, 96 miles an hour off the bat. The second one, well over 100, I think even like over 105 off the bat. So really good to see there. We've talked about it a lot already over the winter. Excited to see Jace Young's offense without the wrist injury. Hopefully this is a sign of things to come. Also need to see more of his defense, though. It hasn't really been challenged too much defensively yet. We're 2 games in. That's totally okay. Just need to see more of that as the, I almost said as the offseason, as spring training, rather, rolls along. Andy Ibanez getting opportunities against right-handed pitching is not an accident. That's not just, we're just going to throw Ibanez out there. Everything AJ Hinch does is calculated, and I think that this is one of those things. It's very similar to the Kerry Carpenter getting opportunities against lefties thing that we reportedly, at least, are going to see this spring training. I am glad that Andy Ibanez is getting those reps. He doesn't have to be as good. I'm just kind of going to copy and paste what I've said about Kerry Carpenter, right? Like, he doesn't have to be as good against righties as he is against lefties. Like, that's not what I'm asking for. But if he can even be serviceable, if he can even have a 650 to 670 OPS against right-handed pitchers, you're talking about a whole new world of roster, or lineup, I should say, flexibility for AJ to use. And that's never a bad thing, to give AJ Hinch more strings for his puppet show. I don't know. That one really got off the rails. Hao-Yu Lee did not record a hit over. I think that's right. But had a great walk on Saturday, like 10 or 12 pitch at bat, led to a walk. Really great to see there. And then on Sunday, had a couple of really hard hit balls. One was 111, I think almost 112 miles an hour off the bat. Just went right to the left fielder. He looks really comfortable in the box. Want to see him defensively. He made a really nice play at second base on Sunday. Want to see him more defensively at third base as the spring rolls along. And just because I think that in the immediate, maybe long-term, he's still second base. Colt Keith can stay at first. Glaber's not a long-term option. Hao-Yu Lee can go to second. That's, I guess, on the table. Kevin McGonigal plays in, the infield mix at some point as well. But I in the immediate, I think the avenue is for him to get reps at third base. And so I'd like to see that a little bit more. Eddie's Leonard getting a lot of reps at shortstop and third base. Nice to see. Not on the 40-man roster anymore, but still in the organization, which I'm happy about. Hopefully he can take that step in development and stay healthy this year. Justice Bigby with a walk-off on Saturday. Really cool. Had a couple of knocks as well. That's a guy that in 2023 was one of the Tigers minor leaguer players of the year. Like he was phenomenal in 2023 and kind of skyrocketed up rankings. And then last year in AAA, he didn't hit very well. Friend of the program, by the way. We had Bigby on, I think, in the offseason in between 2023 and 2024. So you can go find that interview somewhere. But he's a guy that had really good bat to ball skills. And I am hoping that he can just get better at hitting velocity. That's really the biggest thing standing in his way. Get better at pulling fastballs. He just became a slap hitter and was kind of late on everything last year. If we can change that, then that's a guy that hopefully can get his name back on the map in 2025 as well. More pitching, bullpen. We'll talk about kind of big picture bullpen in a second here. Actually, I don't want to jump the gun on that. But Tyler Owens made his Tigers debut on Sunday. I thought that he showed really good velocity, some pretty good stuff. I think that that's a really good depth arm piece to kind of have. Chase Lee pitched on Saturday, did give up a home run for what that's worth, but I really like the arm angle of Chase Lee. It's really unique. It's not quite a true sidearm, but it's definitely not a 3/4 or an over the top either. I think that one of the cool things that bullpen coaches and coaching staffs around baseball are doing these days is trying to get a bunch of pitchers that release from different arm slots in their bullpen so that they can throw a lineup a bunch of different angles and a bunch of different viewpoints. And I think that a guy like Chase Lee, while he's never going to be, like a lockdown back end reliever type, could be a guy that just showcases a different kind of unique, funky angle that not too many other people have. And if you can put that in your bullpen, then that can obviously go a long way as well. Brennan White, the return of Brennan White, I thought he looked great. Had 2 strikeouts in 1 inning. Happy to see him. The teammates were all happy for him. Just after such a rough year last year with injuries, just coming back and looking as good as he did on top of that, just was really cool. So bullpen as a whole, I thought that it was noticeable how deep the Tigers pitching is. That might be my biggest takeaway of the entire weekend. Garrett Burhan stuff was disgusting. Disgusting. Great velocity, great movement, especially glove side. Disgusting. Not on anybody's radar going into spring training. But a guy that proved that his stuff is good last year and came into camp and looked pretty good in his spring debut on Sunday. And like that's just one example of many. Like the Tigers have absolutely established themselves as one of the better pitching labs, as the kids call it, in baseball. And it is just absolutely awesome to see. Like we have really become that. Like the Detroit Tigers have become that. And that is just so awesome. My whole life, it was, the Dodgers and the Rays. You have to hear about how they're so good at developing pitching. And, if somebody goes to the Rays or the Dodgers, like they're just going to start being really good and ha ha ha. And like the fact that you can watch a Tiger spring training game and see some dude that is so low on the pecking order, he doesn't even have his last name on the back of his jersey, take the bump and throw 95 with sick cutting movement. Is just absolutely awesome, man. So I know we do it all the time, but tip of the cap to the development team, the front office, obviously Feder and the coaching staff. Just so much has been put in place. So many foundational pieces have been laid over the last 4 years to get the Tigers to this point where, you know what, if 6 pitchers get hurt, we're still here. Like we're not effing around, The entire bullpen, 8 arms in the pen can get hurt. And it's certainly going to take a hit. And we don't want that to happen. Okay. And it's not going to be as good. I'm not trying to say that, that they have Tyler Holton's down in AA, but like it's one of those things where you can have a next man up mentality in that bullpen and feel good about it. And that's just awesome. Got a few more points I want to make, then we'll preview Tyler Holton. We'll do that right after this. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Third and final segment, Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in as always. Matt Manning pitched this weekend, pitched on, what was that? That was Saturday's game, right? Got hit around, to be honest, but the velocity was really good. I think the conversation has to begin for Matt Manning moving to the bullpen. And I think his stuff will always be, in a perfect world, more of a starter's style. But I also think that he was throwing 97, 98 miles an hour this weekend. And like, if you can tell him, hey, empty the tank because you're only going an inning or two, then if that's what gets him to throw his stuff consistently at its best, which we literally have never seen him do from start to start basis in his major league career, then like, that's what you got to do. And, I'll be really interested because I don't expect him to make the team out of camp. I will be really interested in what role they put him in Toledo, because as we've talked about a couple of times already this spring, Matt Manning has one minor league option left, and presumably it'll be used after spring training this year. So, the next calendar year, the next 12 months are going to be really interesting for him. And I'm hoping that he can kind of put one foot in front of the other here and can use that short burst kind of, arsenal to maybe be an effective reliever. And if the Tigers still think that he can be a starter down the road at some point, then he's going to go to Toledo and be a starter. And they're going to keep trying to bang that drum and try to get the most out of him that way. And that's totally fine. But he only threw 1 inning. Again, got hit around, didn't miss too many bats. Still a big problem there. But the velocity was, eyebrow raising for sure. Only other thing I really want to point out is Spencer Torkelson and Justin Henry Malloy both had hits this weekend. Torkelson played on Saturday, so we didn't get to see a head-on video because, again, not televised because it's 2025, and obviously that's a thing for some reason. of the adjustments he's made in his batting stance, but there is by Evan Petzold's iPhone via that in the press box. It does seem like there's a little bit of a lifted foot there, which we talked about a little bit last week. So hopefully that's a sign of things to come. Malloy got a lot of playing time this weekend and also got reps at first base on Sunday, which I think is important to note. The starting pitchers for the next 3 days, that is today, as you're listening to this, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, in order is Cater Montero, Jackson Jobe, and Tarek Skubal. As it stands right now, it sounds like Job's might not be televised because, again, it's 2025, and that's so cool. Let's preview Tyler Holton. Okay, we're literally spending like 5 minutes at the end of the show for the Tyler Holton preview. And the reason why is because I don't know what really there is to say. He is incredible. 2.19 ERA. His whip last year was 0.78. That is phenomenal. That is astronomical. 21.8 K percentage, 4.8 walk rate. One of the lowest walk rates amongst relievers in the entire sport. 2023, he had a 2.11 ERA and a 0.87 whip. Career ERA is now 2.19. Every pitch he has is a plus pitch, and he's a reliever with 5. And he doesn't rely on velocity, which is why I love him so much. And I think that's why AJ isn't afraid to throw him in 90 innings like he did in 2024. Because he's not a guy that you're like, oh, shoot, he's pumping 102, and that's how he gets all of his value and, velocity rules and all that. Not to say he's a slouch up there, it's still like low 90s, mid 90s when he throws the four seam, but like it's a guy that relies on arsenal. And that is just so awesome to have a back end reliever that relies on that is so rare and unique in this day and age of baseball. And for him to be a lefty on top of that, he's the best. Fastball, cutter, sinker, sweeper, changeup, righty lefty doesn't even really matter. He is better against lefties, but like that's because lefties literally don't hit him and righties do like sometimes every once in a while, but neither hit him well. Sub 200 batting averages against both platoons. The only thing that you could, in theory, I guess, knock him for is being below average in swing and miss and in strikeouts. But again, like they aren't super low. It's not like he's bad there. They're just slightly below league average by like less than 1%. Like he's around a league average pitcher in terms of the amount of strikeouts he gets. When the ball is put in play, he has really high ground ball rates. He is awesome. And I think his role on the team is the only thing that's really left for discussion. And I honestly don't think it's much of a discussion either. Like he should be the highest leverage left-handed reliever. It's as simple as that. And like, again, he's good against righties. You don't need to be like, oh, Tyler Holton can't come in the game because righties are due up. I don't care. He's an animal. But at any point late in the game, in the highest of high leverage, I don't care if it's bottom of the ninth, 2 outs, bases loaded, because his high leverage stats are incredible. If you look, Baseball Reference is a great thing where they look at every situation and they grade it as a low leverage, medium leverage, or high leverage situation. They're all the same and they're all ridiculous. Like it doesn't matter. He's cold blooded. Okay, ice in the veins. And so at any point, if you are in that late game high leverage situation and, a string of lefties or a lefty is due up and you can make a pitching change, you're going to pull trigger on that and you're going to bring him in, and you should. He can go multiple innings. He can open a game. He can end a game. He can swing from, be the guy that's out there from the 4th to the 6th. He is just the man. And I can't even really articulate how valuable he is to this bullpen with the amount of usage he gets and the amount of situations he's thrown in. He's incredible. I was very wrong last year. Last year I said, he's good and had obviously an incredible 2023, but don't expect him to be that good in 2024, but still expect him to be solid and like a long-term option for this team, like a 3 or a 3.5 ERA, and he'll still be really valuable and awesome. And then he was like arguably better than he was in 2023, in 2024. He will be a prominent part of this Tigers bullpen again, and that is absolutely awesome. And Tyler Holton's awesome, and I love him. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. Shots to everydayers that do tune in every day. We will, of course, be back tomorrow as we keep player previewing our way through the 40-man roster and talking about notables from spring training. We're not going to spend whole episodes talking about notes from spring training. This was just the first 2 games of the spring, so there's a lot to talk about, multiple games and the beginning of games. But as we go along, a couple of notes here and there on a, Thursday in early March, spring game, whatever. And then we'll move on to the rest of the conversations after. We're not going to do our full game recaps until the regular season starts. So, but yeah, anything notable that I think is worth talking about in a spring game, we'll talk about it here. I appreciate you all greatly. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. I'll catch you all tomorrow, baby. Go Tigers.